So I guess this is sort of the final review for Fellowship of the Ring. This is by Iron Crown Enterprises. What do I say? First thing, I was mistaken. I think it's definitely not a 4-hour game unless something very weird happens at the beginning. I think it's more along the lines of probably 6 hours. That sounds about right. Put it at about 20 minutes a turn. It comes out about right. A little bit less than that, and you get it. Okay, components. Well, I don't know how much it was visible, but the cards are really, really cheesy in the sense that I don't know how many years this was played, but they definitely wore out, especially the Fellowship character cards. The map, not terribly attractive. Puzzle board, pooches, pops. There's apparently another version. Little dice. Like I said, I got a problem with them. Some of them are, at least one of them was badly malformed. And their color choices made the blue and the black almost impossible to distinguish. The number pips probably should be colored so that you can see them from more than 2 inches away. There's apparently another version of this, and I have no idea what its components are like, but from what I heard, the dice were really, really bad for that, in terms of just, they handed you a random assortment of colored dice. Figure it out on your own, folks. That would be horrible, and if you're buying a version other than this one, you probably want to consider that you want to buy a pile of dice to go with it, specifically. Player 8 cards, kind of flimsy, serviceable though. It is absolutely a lifesaver that these charts are on cards rather than just buried in the rulebook. Some games would have them buried in the rulebook. These are flimsier than I would expect from Iron Crown at this era. The original Rollmaster was printed on a somewhat harder stock. This is more like what came out in the later version of Rollmaster. The rulebook. My first impression was it was very good. It has not it read well, but it hasn't served terribly well as a reference manual. There have been things I had to look through a little harder than I would like to. One nice thing is it has numbers, paragraphing. It's not terribly well referenced, but somehow the numbers themselves help me find things. It's got a table of contents sheet that you probably should photocopy if you're playing it. Okay, so what do I think about it? I mean, this was a game, when I first saw it, it intrigued me, and I stayed away from it largely because of the scope. Hey, it doesn't cover the armies, and it doesn't even cover the whole trip of the book. However, because of its focus on the scope, I think it tells a much better story than certainly the SPI War of the Ring does, which is more of a military game, really. And yes, there's a pure character scenario for that, but that's a scenario where it may be the better scenario out of the two for the SPI game, but it's one that feels like they more trimmed it away to just give you a simpler game. This is absolutely focused on bringing the hobbits and the ring to Rivendell, presumably. You could go other places, and eventually as close to Mordor as you can reasonably get, and then breaking the Fellowship and you know, seeing what happens. And there's all this uncertainty about what's where. So much more than the SPI game has. The fact that it's done all in the open on a board with kind of a, you know, similar to the Columbia block games or whatever, but the amount of hidden in, you know, of suspense, etc., that was in it When I played it 2-player, I was, crapping myself, thinking that the evil player is going to do me in, get that lucky search roll or whatever. I don't really remember it terribly well, but I remember really loving it. And that was 6, 7 years maybe less than that, after I had seen it and passed on it a few times at the game store. It was always a few bucks more than I was willing to pay for it, given the scope issues, given that it was at least $5 more than every other game, every other boxed game there. There's only one other game from that era that I saw sitting on the shelves there that I wanted about as much, which was Avalon Hill's Flat Top. These are the 2 games that were available at my store continuously that I never bought. I bought all the GDW stuff. I bought almost all of the Avalon Hill games. There were a few I stayed away from. But these 2 I stayed, and now I'm thinking, wow, I better get Flat Top. Flat Top, again, is a game that doesn't solo well. So there's the thing. You saw me playing this solitaire. Some of you probably might be thinking, wow, you can't even play solitaire. I would say no. I mean, I play Diplomacy Solitaire. You probably really want an opponent for this one. And even playing at Solitaire, the only real enjoyment I'm getting is telling this story and sharing it with you. I think playing at Solitaire myself, I would not get very much out of it. I think I probably would have given up halfway through. Just the advantage of these videos. I do take more enjoyment when I do. What else can I say? I really don't know. As I brought forth at one point, the balance is a little questionable. I think that it's a tough game for the evil player to win. Now, I'm playing it off of one game I played 25 years ago and a solo game where the game that I remember playing opposed, I wasn't even being found. I mean, he had very little idea where I was on the board. We didn't finish, but I felt like I had my opponent completely confused as I was playing the Fellowship. In this one, I share the same brain between the 2 players, and it's hard to hide certain things. I tried to make decisions, etc., but it seemed pretty obvious to me as the evil player which stack was which, who was where. That may have been because of some lucky search rolls early on or whatever. But it captures, it captures the feel of the situation, but I just don't know how fairly balanced the game is. As I suggested, there are ways to handle that. You could bid, you could play 2 games, one from each side. I think there's a significant amount of luck in this beyond just rolling for searches. Actually, searches you will generally, succeed where you aim for, and things should turn up, rumors should happen. But the significant amount of luck is actually the bluffing part of it. Is that really luck? I don't know. Stratego, is it a game with luck or without? Battleship. To me, there's a certain luck factor in these games, even though both players are completely, in control of all the hidden aspects. I still see it as a luck factor because you don't know what the opponent has. So you can call it something else, hidden information, whatever, but it feels like luck. It feels like, I guessed the right place, I mean, I don't want to think of Rochambeau as a game of great skill here. One thing that was kind of funny, these were unpunched when I got the game, and the game that I played with in opposed play as well, the owner didn't punch them. The rules kind of suggest, well, you don't really need them. And you kind of don't. But I think they're helpful, especially some of the cards cause events that have permanent effect, like a pass being open or something along those lines. And it's just odd that, neither of the other people I've known who owned it punch their counters. That's almost the first thing I do. I open up a game, it's time to punch the counters. So, one last thing I wanted to say is, in terms of Undead Viking, I at least wanted to push his vids a little bit, because since this was his game, I've watched a few of them, and I think if you enjoy the kind of low-key atmosphere that I try to do in my videos, without a lot of flash, without a lot of little graphic intros or anything like that, and with a lot of what don't sound like terribly rehearsed comments about a game, I think his are pretty good. Now, he does straight reviews where he goes over the rules, and I think he rehearses that or pre-plans that a bit. But a lot of the stuff's off the cuff. Marco as well. He's hilarious, by the way. For more of the light working kind of situation. But I think you might enjoy his video, Undead Vikings videos, and if you get a chance, you probably want to look at some of them. They tell you more about what the games are themselves, rather than spending so much time on just playing it. Now, this one I think went really, really well in terms of playing it out, and because it exposes this wonderful story. So many of them, especially the war games. Oh, look, here's some troops moving. And it catches the spirit so fantastically, especially in the opposed play. I mean, you don't know where the enemy is. It's fairly simple mechanics. You're not, charting things out and plotting movement. I feel like you can get into the story without, there's not a lot in your way, but it still provides a fairly significant game. Oh, one thing I didn't mention about the rulebook, and I don't want to dig it out right now. It's a fairly hefty rulebook. We're talking, this is a game that's got as complex a set of rules as most war games will, and this is from an era. Don't expect games from this era to be your common Euro. They're not 4 or 5 pages of rules and lots of big pictures and maybe 2 languages covered in those 5 pages. This is I think 24 pages, which even at that time was fairly heavy. Densely packed, and maybe not the most perfect rulebook possible, but certainly not a terribly bad one at all. Alright, I'm going to let you go, and I guess we're back to nothing gained but glory. I still have a couple scenarios in that.